The wind howled through the skeletal trees of Grayson's Hollow, carrying a chill that seeped into Officer Ryan Callahan's bones. His K-9 partner, Rook, scratched furiously at the remnants of a collapsed shed, growling low, eyes fixed on something hidden beneath the splintered wood. The rural silence pressed down like a weight, broken only by the dog's frantic claws and the occasional snap of broken timber. Ryan crouched, heart thundering, camera light trembling in his hand. Whatever was inside that shed, it wasn't meant to be found. And yet, the dog refused to leave. If you stay with this story, you might just see why. The night had settled over Grayson's Hollow like a heavy velvet curtain, muffling every sound except for the restless wind and the occasional creak of an old pine. Officer Ryan Callahan parked his cruiser at the edge of the dirt road, headlights cutting through the thick fog like searchlights in a forgotten theater. He rubbed his temples, trying to shake the unease that had been crawling along his spine ever since Rook refused to leave the collapsed shed on the old Jenkins property. Rook, a massive Belgian Malinois with a coat as dark as midnight, sat rigid at the pile of splintered wood, growling low and scratching at the debris with an intensity Ryan had never seen before. The dog's eyes gleamed in the faint light, locked on something beneath the wreckage. He didn't just sense something, it was as if the dog knew. "Rook, come on, boy," Ryan murmured, crouching beside him. The fog clung to his jacket, chilling him to the bone. "We can't just stand out here all night. It's—" A sharp snap of timber interrupted him. Rook barked, low and urgent, sending a jolt through Ryan's chest. He froze, listening. There was no wind there, no shift in the trees. Whatever had caused the noise was inside the shed. Or under it. Ryan sighed, tension coiling in his chest. He had been a cop long enough to know the rural hollows held secrets, lost farm animals, drunks sleeping it off, the occasional stray squatter. But something about Rook's behavior didn't fit any normal scenario. The dog's hackles were raised, ears rigid, teeth bared. Rook's gaze shifted to Ryan, then back to the wreckage, as though urging him, "Don't ignore this." The shed had been abandoned for years. Everyone in town knew it as the Jenkins place, a crumbling, rotting structure that the wind had slowly devoured. Locals avoided it, whispering about old Mr. Jenkins and the things he kept hidden in the barn. It was a place where secrets festered, where a man could disappear, and the woods would swallow his absence whole. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from dispatch. "Any update on the Jenkins call?" He stared at the screen. How could he explain this? That his dog was refusing to leave, scratching at a pile of ruins, growling at a presence invisible to the human eye? He typed back, keeping it minimal, investigating. "Will update." A faint whimper came from beneath the woodpile. Rook stiffened, then barked violently. Ryan felt his stomach knot. He knelt and shined his flashlight through the gaps, catching glimpses of shadows dancing across shattered beams. Something moved, something small, curled up, shivering. "Easy, easy now," he whispered, careful not to startle it. The light trembled across a shape that was unmistakably human. A child. No, too large. A teenager. And it was alive. Barely. Skin pale, clothes torn, eyes wide with fear. Ryan's heart thumped in his ears. He had to be calm, procedures, safety first, but the raw, visceral fear radiating from the figure under the shed cut through any training. Rook barked again, circling the debris, scratching frantically, pawing at the beams. "Hold on, buddy. We're getting you out." Ryan checked the perimeter. No one else around. No signs of anyone who might have done this, though he knew rural crimes often left no trace. Slowly, carefully, he began lifting broken planks, one at a time, his flashlight steady. The cold seeped into his bones. Each piece of wood he moved revealed more, dirt-streaked skin, bruises, exhaustion. As the last beam shifted, the teenager, now clearly visible, let out a small, rattled sob. Ryan's stomach churned. This wasn't an accident. Whoever had left this child here had done so deliberately. Rage and horror mixed in his chest. Rook stayed at the edge, growling low, hackles high. He didn't approach the child, didn't relax. It was as if he sensed the lingering presence of the perpetrator, or something worse. "Hey, it's okay," Ryan said softly, lowering himself beside the trembling figure. "You're safe now. I'm Ryan. This is Rook. We're here to help." The teenager blinked, dirt and tears streaking a pale face. "He said he'd come back," the voice whispered. "He said no one would find me." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Who? Who said that?" No answer, just a shiver that rattled through the wreckage. He glanced around. The hollow was empty, silent, the fog thickening as if it wanted to hide the evidence of what had just happened. He knew he couldn't wait for backup. The child needed immediate medical attention. He scooped them up carefully, Rook pressing close, still alert. But as Ryan turned toward his cruiser, a rustle in the trees made him freeze. Shadows shifted unnaturally, too quick, too deliberate. A man stepped into the fog, partially concealed by the trees, face obscured by a hood. His eyes glinted in the flashlight beam. "Step away," Ryan ordered, hand on his holster. Rook growled, teeth bared. The man smiled, a thin, twisted curve. "You think you've saved anyone," he said, voice low, almost intimate. "You have no idea what's beneath the wood." Ryan felt his blood run cold. He'd met dangerous men before, men willing to kill without hesitation, but this presence, this was different. Calculated, patient, dangerous in a way that left a physical ache in the chest. "I don't know what you mean," Ryan said, keeping his tone steady, eyes never leaving the figure. "Oh, but you will," the man replied, stepping closer, revealing a hand smeared faintly with what could be rust or blood. "They all say the same thing, right before they realize they're too late." Rook barked, a warning that made the man hesitate. The dog's hair bristled, eyes fixed, every muscle taut. Ryan took a deep breath, slowly pulling the child closer to his chest. "Back off. No." The figure laughed quietly, a sound that slithered through the fog. And then, as suddenly as he appeared, he melted back into the darkness, leaving only the echo of his voice, and the sharp, unsettling sense that this night was far from over. Ryan exhaled, shaky, heart-hammering. He turned to the teenager, brushing dirt from their hair. "We're leaving. You're safe now. I promise." But even as he said it, a part of him knew, something in Rook's tense posture, in the lingering fog, in the shadows of the hollow, that the shed had not given up all its secrets, and that whatever had happened here tonight was only the beginning. The ambulance's siren faded into the distance, swallowed by the hollowed valleys of Grayson's Hollow. Officer Ryan Callahan drove slowly, the child huddled on the seat beside him, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Rook, usually calm after a tense call, sat alert in the back of the cruiser, ears twitching at every shadow that flitted past the fogged windows. Ryan's mind replayed the night's events in an endless loop, the collapsed shed, the frantic scratches, the pale, terrified teenager, and the cryptic man in the trees. Each memory carried a weight that made his chest tighten. He hadn't noticed the chill pressing against his skin until a tremor ran down his spine. The hollow had a way of settling into a person, like the fog itself could burrow into bones and thoughts. Even with the warmth of the heater blasting in the cruiser, Ryan felt the cold as a lingering presence. "You're safe now," he murmured, more to himself than to the teenager, whose name he hadn't even asked. The teenager stayed silent, eyes wide and haunted, fingers gripping the blanket. Every so often, they glanced toward the shattered remnants of the Jenkins shed as if expecting it to rise again from the darkness. When they arrived at the hospital, Ryan stayed only long enough to ensure the teenager was under medical care. He didn't linger. Hospitals had a strange way of magnifying fear, and he needed clarity. Outside, Rook's leash in hand, Ryan walked to the edge of the parking lot, staring at the mist rolling over the skeletal trees. That's when he heard it, a crunching of dead leaves, deliberate and slow. "Show yourself," Ryan called, voice firm, hand hovering near his holster. The sound stopped. Silence. Then, from the shadows of an old oak, a figure emerged. Hood pulled low, face still obscured, but the movement was deliberate, careful. "You didn't think it would end that easily, did you?" The man's voice was soft, almost intimate, and it carried a weight Ryan couldn't shake. "You think you've saved anyone. But you're standing on the edge, and the bottom hasn't given up its secrets yet." Ryan tensed. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The man tilted his head, studying Ryan as if examining a specimen. "Doing this? You mean revealing the truth? There's a difference, officer. You'll learn soon enough." Rook growled low in his throat. The dog's gaze fixed on the man, unblinking, unwavering. Ryan realized then that Rook sensed something Ryan couldn't see, a presence beyond human intent. The figure vanished as quickly as he appeared, leaving only the echoes of dry leaves and a lingering unease. Ryan's stomach twisted. He didn't trust instinct alone, but with Rook's behavior and the man's eerie presence, it was clear the night had only begun. Back at the station, Ryan tried to focus on paperwork, but every thought returned to the shed, to the teenager, and to the man's cryptic warnings. The town of Grayson's Hollow wasn't large. Everyone knew everyone, or at least they thought they did, but some shadows were long enough to stretch between generations. Sergeant Marlowe, Ryan's superior, walked in, his expression a mixture of fatigue and curiosity. "Callahan, you've got that look again," he said. "That look you get when something in the hollow has you unsettled." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "The shed on Jenkins' property. Rook wouldn't leave it. There was a teenager inside, barely alive, and," he paused, uncertain if he should admit the rest, "a man. Hooded. Watching us. He knew we were there. He vanished." Marlowe's eyes narrowed. "You saw him? Or you're spinning a tale to cover the night's weirdness?" "I saw him. I'm telling you. This isn't normal." Marlowe exhaled slowly. "You've been working these rural calls too long. Hollows full of old houses and old men who don't want to be found. But keep your eyes open. If you're sure about this, document everything. We can't afford another Jenkins situation." Ryan nodded, but inside, he felt a knot tighten. There was more here than old houses and stray teens. Over the next 2 days, Ryan's investigation deepened. He returned to the collapsed shed in daylight, Rook in tow, camera ready. The splintered wood revealed nothing more than broken beams, decayed floorboards, and the faint, sour smell of mildew. But beneath the surface, something nagged at him. The footprints, half buried in mud and snow from the previous night, didn't match any size or gait he'd seen. They were deliberate, human-like, yet oddly irregular. Rook sniffed the debris, growled, and pawed at a section Ryan had initially overlooked. Beneath a loose floorboard, Ryan found a small box, partially rotten but intact. Inside were faded photographs, teenagers, some smiling, others wide-eyed and terrified, lined up as if part of a collection. A journal lay atop the photos, pages brittle, ink smeared. Names, dates, places, some recent, some decades old. Ryan's pulse quickened. Whoever had used this shed had been keeping watch, recording, waiting. And he knew, the hooded man from the hospital was connected. At the same time, tensions flared at the station. Detective Laura Vance, a new transfer, had questions. She was sharp, calculating, and morally flexible in her methods. "Ryan," she said, leaning over his desk, "I've been reviewing old Jenkins cases. You know about the disappearances in this hollow? Some of those files, they don't add up. Someone's been cleaning up after themselves for decades. You might be looking at more than one perpetrator." Ryan frowned. "What do you mean? Are you suggesting the Jenkins property isn't the only location?" "Exactly," she said. "And if the guy you saw is smart, he's always one step ahead. You can't just follow logic. You have to anticipate the unexpected." Ryan felt a flicker of unease. Vance's calm, calculating nature unnerved him. She was brilliant, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she might manipulate situations for personal gain. Not outright malicious, but morally gray, someone willing to blur rules to reach her goals. He would need to watch her closely. That night, Ryan returned home, but sleep eluded him. Rook stayed close, ears twitching at every creak and groan. He tried to focus, reviewing every detail from the past few days, the child's fearful eyes, the abandoned shed, the man in the shadows, the photographs, the journal. Every piece pointed to a network, a long-running pattern of secrecy and control. Then, the phone rang. No caller ID. Hesitant, Ryan answered. "You're too late, Officer Callahan," the voice whispered, chilling in its intimacy. "You think you're saving them, but the hollow decides who lives and who disappears. And you've already stepped too close." The line went dead. Ryan's grip tightened, knuckles white. He glanced at Rook, who growled low, hair bristling, staring at the darkened window. Ryan's stomach sank. Whoever this was, they knew him personally. They had been watching. The following morning, Ryan returned to the Jenkins site with Vance, despite his instincts. They needed to document everything, collect evidence, and determine whether the shed was an isolated incident or part of a larger network. Vance moved methodically, photographing everything, her eyes sharp, mind calculating. Ryan couldn't help but feel exposed, like she saw angles he didn't and might manipulate them for her own ends. As they dug through the debris, Rook suddenly stiffened, ears flat, hackles raised. A low growl escaped his throat. Ryan's flashlight caught something glinting in the mud. Metallic, partially buried, and unmistakably deliberate, a set of keys. Keys that didn't belong to the Jenkins family, keys worn and scratched with age, as though they had been used many times to enter forbidden spaces. Ryan picked them up, frowning. These aren't farm keys. These are office keys? Storage. Vance's eyes gleamed. Or keys to something much worse. Before they could discuss further, movement in the woods made them spin around. A figure, small, nimble, darted between the trees. Not a child, not a man, but something in the stride, the fluidity, set Ryan's nerves on edge. The figure vanished into the fog before he could react. "See? They're still here," Vance murmured. "Watching. Waiting. You're playing catch-up in their game, Ryan. And they like it." As night fell over Grayson's Hollow again, Ryan realized the pattern. Every clue led deeper into a network of secrecy. Each revelation only increased the danger. He had saved one teenager, but countless others might still be trapped. And the hooded man. He wasn't alone. He was part of something far older, far more deliberate than Ryan had imagined. Rook scratched at the crumbling shed once more, low growls vibrating in his chest. Ryan placed a hand on his companion's neck. "We're going to get them all," he whispered. "No matter what it takes." But even as he spoke, a shadow moved in the trees, silent, watching, calculating. And somewhere in the distance, a faint laugh echoed, chilling and patient, reminding him that in Grayson's Hollow, nothing stayed hidden forever, and nothing, not even trust, was safe. The fog had thickened into a gray, suffocating blanket over Grayson's Hollow. Even the familiar groan of the old pines seemed muted, as though the town itself were holding its breath. Officer Ryan Callahan stood at the edge of the collapsed Jenkins shed, Rook by his side, each paw tense, claws digging into the soft earth. The keys they had found yesterday weighed heavy in his pocket, a symbol of the labyrinth he had yet to navigate. Every decision in the next hours would determine how many lives might be saved or lost. The teenager he had rescued 2 nights prior was safe under hospital care, but Ryan could feel the unresolved tension pressing on him like a physical force. Every step forward in this investigation felt like walking on thin ice over a dark abyss. Whoever had orchestrated the horrors of this hollow was patient, calculating, and utterly fearless. "Rook," Ryan whispered, scanning the fog. The dog's ears twitched. His nose was low to the ground, tracking something Ryan couldn't yet sense. The subtle movements of the trees, the silence between the rustling leaves, spoke to him in ways words could not. Then he saw it, a faint figure moving near the edge of the trees, hunched, deliberate, watching. Ryan's pulse quickened. He stepped forward cautiously, hand hovering near his holster. "You've come far, Officer Callahan," a voice called from the shadows, low and controlled. It was the hooded man from the hospital, but now there was a confidence in him that made Ryan's stomach churn. "Do you understand what you've stumbled into?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. Enough to know that hiding behind shadows doesn't make you untouchable. The man chuckled softly. "Ah, but shadows are where power lies. Here, in the hollow, no one is innocent. No one is safe. You've been saving victims, yes, but the system, the rules, they mean nothing here." Ryan noticed movement behind the man. Another figure, smaller, partially concealed, emerging from the fog. A teenager, haggard, eyes wide with terror. Ryan's heart clenched. He had seen this before, the repeated cycle of fear and manipulation, the way the hollow chewed people up and spat them out. The hooded man stepped aside, revealing the full extent of his plan. Several makeshift cages, remnants of the barn's interior, hidden beneath tarps and foliage. Empty, but a chilling reminder of the scale of his control. "You think you can unravel this in one night," the man said. "Decades of planning, of watching, of choosing carefully. You're barely a nuisance." Ryan's jaw tightened. "We stop this. Tonight. The man's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, a flicker of something human, vulnerable, but gone in an instant. Do you even know who you're dealing with? This hollow, it belongs to me. And everyone who tries to interfere, pays. Rook growled low, warning clear. Ryan raised his voice, commanding. Step away. Let the child go. The hooded man paused, a flash of recognition crossing his features. Then, unexpectedly, he ran, not toward escape, but into a trap Ryan had set weeks ago, anticipating his return. Rook lunged, teeth flashing, forcing the man to the ground. Ryan cuffed him quickly, heart hammering, adrenaline surging. But the shock came next. As Ryan searched the man, he discovered an ID in his coat, someone he had trusted. The local librarian, Martin Hale. The face of a quiet, unassuming man who had spent years in the community, beloved for his calm demeanor and knowledge of local history. Ryan's hands shook. Martin had orchestrated this. The betrayals, the disappearances, the terror, all rooted in someone he had passed in the library every week. Rook's growls subsided, but his eyes never left Martin. The moral grayness of the human heart had never been more palpable. How had a man capable of kindness also orchestrated such horror? Ryan's radio crackled. Backup was en route. The siren sounds in the distance were thin at first but grew steadily louder. Yet, he could not let relief wash over him, not yet. He had to ensure the safety of the hidden victims, the ones still trapped, still unseen. I know there are others, Ryan said to Martin, voice low, fierce. Tell me where they are. Martin smiled, cold and calm. Do you really think it's that simple? You saved one, but the Hollow has rules. It decides who stays and who disappears. You cannot save everyone. Ryan's hand tightened on the cuffs, rage surging. Try me. For a moment, Martin's eyes flickered with hesitation, just enough to show he had underestimated Ryan. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded toward the shed. Beneath the wreckage. Look carefully. Ryan's stomach sank as he approached. He knew the shed would hold more secrets. Carefully, he lifted boards, revealing hidden compartments. Inside were journals, more photographs, and even personal belongings of victims, the meticulous record-keeping of a man who thrived on fear, control, and secrecy. Names, dates, small notes, patterns of torment, the careful monitoring of each child, each victim. Vance arrived then, moving swiftly and efficiently, her calm eyes assessing the scene. Ryan, she said, we need to get these items catalogued. Evidence, photographs, everything. He nodded, glancing once more at Martin, whose face betrayed nothing. A small part of Ryan wanted to understand how a man could live a quiet life, help in the community, and harbor such darkness. But some answers were too bitter to chew. As night deepened, Ryan escorted the first of the recovered teenagers to the hospital. Their silence was a heavy presence in the car, eyes distant, hands trembling. He offered gentle words, reassurance, but the weight of trauma was palpable. Outside, Rook patrolled, ever vigilant. Back at the station, Ryan and Vance worked tirelessly through documents, maps, and notes recovered from Martin. The Hollow's network of control, manipulation, and terror became clearer with each page. The scale was unimaginable. And yet, Ryan felt the familiar knot of responsibility tighten. There were still victims, hidden pockets of horror that Martin had yet to reveal. Late into the night, Ryan sat alone with Rook in the abandoned part of the station. The dog rested his head on Ryan's lap, eyes watchful. Ryan's mind replayed the events, the child under the shed, the betrayal of Martin, the eerie presence that had haunted the Hollow for decades. For the first time in years, he questioned the fragility of trust, the nature of evil, and the cost of heroism. Then a noise, a subtle shift behind him, made him freeze. He drew his weapon, heart hammering. Shadows moved, small, fleeting. It was not Martin, not the perpetrator. But someone, another victim, another witness, was trying to reach him, afraid and desperate. Ryan recognized the look, survival instinct, hardened by fear. He knelt, speaking softly, coaxing them into safety. It was then he realized the truth. The Hollow had no final victor. It tested, it tormented, it revealed the best and worst in people. But for those willing to act, to fight for the innocent, there was hope. Fragile, yes, but present. Dawn broke over Grayson's Hollow, pale light spilling across skeletal trees and the remnants of the shed. Silence hung in the air, heavy but no longer suffocating. Ryan, Rook at his side, stood over the debris, taking in the weight of what had occurred. The fog was lifting, exposing the scars the Hollow had inflicted. He knelt beside the wreckage, brushing his fingers across splintered wood. Memories of the terrified children, Rook's insistence, Martin's betrayal, and Vance's calculated help pressed into him. He closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath. "You did good, buddy," he whispered to Rook. The dog nudged his hand, steady, eyes alert. Together, they had faced the darkness, and emerged intact. Not unscathed, not untouched, but unbroken. Later, as Martin Hale was led away in handcuffs, his face impassive, Ryan understood one painful truth. Evil often wears the face of normalcy, and trust can be the most dangerous weapon. But courage, loyalty, and compassion were enough to light the Hollow's shadows, if only for a moment. Ryan looked out across the Hollow one last time, Rook at his side. The wind stirred, carrying the faint echoes of the past, of terror and resilience. And in the quiet dawn, Ryan allowed himself a fragile but profound relief. Justice, however incomplete, had been served. The Hollow remained, as it always had, patient, observing, eternal. But for now, the bond between man and dog, between hero and survivor, carried them forward, into the uncertain light of morning, into the promise of safety, into the fragile hope that some shadows could be kept at bay.